The year 1513 dawned under a sky of political tension across Europe. King Henry VIII of England, young and ambitious, had his eyes set on the fields of France. He led a great army across the Channel, joining the Holy League in the War of the League of Cambrai. This act of aggression triggered a long-standing pact between Scotland and France, the Auld Alliance. Louis XII of France sent a desperate plea to his Scottish counterpart, King James IV. He urged James to honor their alliance and create a diversionary conflict on the English border. James IV, a charismatic and chivalrous monarch, felt bound by honor and treaty. Despite warnings from his advisors and even supernatural portents, he resolved to go to war. The fiery cross, a burnt and blood-dipped symbol, was sent across the land to summon the clans. From every corner of Scotland, nobles and commoners answered the call to arms. It was the largest and most powerful army Scotland had ever mustered. An estimated 40,000 men marched south towards the English border. King James IV rode at their head, a magnificent figure in his royal armor. The Scottish army crossed the River Tweed into England in late August. Their initial campaign was successful, a string of English castles falling before them. Norham, Athol, and Ford castles were all captured by the invading force. At Ford Castle, James dallied, captivated by the lady of the manor, Elizabeth Heron. This delay, however brief, would prove to be a critical mistake. Meanwhile, in England, the response was swift and determined. The Earl of Surrey, Thomas Howard, a grizzled veteran of 70, was tasked with England's defense. He hastily assembled an army from the northern counties of England. Though outnumbered, Surrey's forces were disciplined and led by experienced commanders. Surrey's challenge to James was one of chivalric tradition, proposing a battle on a set day. James accepted, entrenching his army in a formidable position atop Flodden Edge. This hill provided a superb defensive advantage, with steep slopes protecting its flanks. Scottish pikes would be devastating against any army attempting a frontal assault. Surrey, seeing the impossibility of a direct attack, knew he had to outmaneuver the Scots. He devised a daring and incredibly risky plan. On September 8th, under the cover of rain and mist, the English army began to move. They undertook a long, arduous flanking march to the east of the Scottish position. They crossed the River Till, placing themselves between James's army and Scotland. This maneuver completely nullified the Scots' superior position on Flodden Edge. When the morning mist cleared on September 9th, the Scots were shocked to see the English army behind them. King James now faced a terrible choice: stay put and starve, or abandon his high ground to fight. Pride in the goading of his nobles compelled him to move. The entire Scottish army was ordered to abandon Flodden Edge. They moved to the adjacent, but lower and less defensible, Branxton Hill. The battle began in the late afternoon with a deafening artillery duel. The Scottish guns, positioned too high on the slope, struggled to find their range. Their shots plunged into the soft ground, burying themselves without effect. In contrast, the lighter, more mobile English artillery was devastatingly effective. They fired with accuracy, tearing bloody lanes through the dense Scottish formations. These formations, known as schiltrons, were packed tight with men and long pikes. While strong against cavalry, they were tragically vulnerable to artillery fire. Goaded by the relentless bombardment, the Scottish left flank charged. Led by Lord Home and the Earl of Huntly, they crashed into the English lines. they achieved initial success, pushing back the English right flank under Edmund Howard. However, their discipline broke as they began to loot the English camp. This crucial error took them out of the main fight at a critical moment. In the center, King James himself prepared to lead his division into battle. With a great cry, the main body of the Scottish army surged down the slope. But their path was impeded by a marshy, waterlogged area at the bottom of the hill. The ground, softened by the previous day's rain, broke their momentum and their formations. Their long, 18-foot pikes became unwieldy and difficult to manage in the chaos. It was into this disarray that the English billmen charged. The English bill was a shorter, versatile polearm, perfect for close-quarters combat. It could be used to hook a man, pull him down, or deliver a devastating cleaving blow. The English soldiers got inside the reach of the long Scottish pikes. The battle descended into a brutal, grinding melee. The air was filled with the sounds of shouting men and the clash of steel. King James fought in the foremost ranks, a warrior king to the last. He cut his way through the English lines, reaching the Earl of Surrey's own standard. For a moment, it seemed the Scottish king might turn the tide himself. But he was soon surrounded, isolated from his own men. The English bills rose and fell, and the King of Scots went down. His body was found the next day, pierced by numerous arrows and billhooks. As dusk fell, the Scottish army, leaderless and broken, began to disintegrate. The English, too exhausted to pursue, held the field. The slaughter had been immense, a catastrophe for Scotland. Alongside the king, a huge portion of the Scottish nobility had perished. 9 earls, 14 lords of parliament, and an archbishop were among the dead. The losses were so great they were called the flowers of the forest. In the towns and villages of Scotland, there was scarcely a family that did not mourn a loss. The news of the defeat sent a shockwave of grief and fear across the nation. Scotland was left with an infant king, James V, and a future filled with uncertainty. The Battle of Flodden was not just a military defeat. It was a national trauma. It marked the end of an era of Scottish confidence and cultural flourishing. The strategic decision to abandon the high ground remains a point of debate for historians. The failure of the long pike against the versatile English bill was a harsh tactical lesson. The battle became etched into the Scottish consciousness, a memory of tragic loss and heroic folly. The lament, the flowers of the forest, would forever memorialize the fallen. Flodden was the last time a Scottish king would lead his army into battle on English soil. The English victory was total, securing their northern border for a generation. But for Scotland, the 9th of September, 1513 would forever be a day of profound and bitter sorrow.